Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast and get CME for this episode by clicking on the CME link in the show notes. Today, we welcome back Jennifer Shaer. She's a pediatrician and chief wellness officer at the Allied Physicians Group. Today's Kevin MD article is titled, Why Your Intuition is Key to Better Physical and Emotional Health. Jennifer, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
So we'll talk about your article in a little bit, but for those who didn't listen to our other episode together, just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
So I would say that I've had a path to become a pediatrician, and as you mentioned, have grown into the role of chief wellness officer at Allied Physicians Group, and also practice as a physician coach, where I help physicians who are sort of feeling unfulfilled really reconnect with their purpose and redefine their careers and their lives so that they can be happy.
And during a role as chief wellness officer, how would you say the state of physician burnout and the obstacles that face physicians today, how has that evolved over the time during your role?
That's a good question. I mean, everybody would say that COVID has pushed physicians into a deeper state of burnout. I don't know that it's so much that COVID has done that as we've just sort of opened the awareness to it. Things have been challenging in the environment of practicing medicine for quite some time. And I'm happy there's a bit more awareness around it now, and we can talk about it.
All right. And as a role as chief wellness officer, or what you see as a coach, what are some of the common issues that you see physicians struggling with today?
So the issues that the physicians struggle with today largely are two-part. One is the institutional issues around the EMR and the rules and the regulations and all the things that they have to deal with. And then there is the personal resilience piece that they are really struggling with. Most of us haven't learned the skills that it takes to build the resilience to deal with the pressure cookers that we are under. So it's a two-pronged approach.
And as chief wellness officer, tell me some of the challenges that you face kind of navigating those two sides. So you have the physicians on one side, and then you have administration and kind of the institutional challenges on the other side. So as chief wellness officer in the middle, how have you navigated those two sides?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, my biggest and first challenge is always trying to maintain my own sort of inner calm and presence so that I can be the space that everybody needs to bridge between kind of the administration and the physicians. Because at the end of the day, everybody really does have the same mission. Everybody really just wants to take care of the patients. It's just that they don't always speak the same language. And I find that I try to help bridge that gap. But I always need to be calm first, which is challenging because it's quite chaotic for me as well.
All right, let's talk about your Kevin MD article. You talk about intuition, why your intuition is key to better physical and emotional health. Tell me how your article came together.
Thanks for asking. So I will say, as this kind of background, that I became very interested in whole mind-body connection about 15 years ago when I was the camp doctor at my daughter's sleepaway camp. Being there, I was assigned to the very first week of camp where all of the kids were homesick. And I was put on the infirmary duty, and other than the poison ivy and the cuts and the bruises, most of the children were coming in with stomach aches and headaches and all of these physical symptoms. And when I saw the tears in their eyes, I asked them, "Are you homesick?" It was fascinating to me to see that as the tears would flow and they could admit that they were sad, all of a sudden their symptoms kind of melted away. And I sort of couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it sort of led me down this journey of kind of looking at that mind-body connection. And in my current sort of role as this physician coach and wellness officer, I just see us as physicians so much not paying attention to the physical symptoms that we are feeling, our intuition and the stresses that we feel, the anxieties and the pressures, and we just kind of push them down, whether we just put our head down and work harder, or we come home and we eat or we drink or we whatever we do. And I just want to kind of raise awareness that pushing it down is like ignoring it's like treating a fever in a patient without getting to the underlying cause of what's causing the fever. Yes, take a Motrin, but also let's dig in and see what's going on, because when you stuff that stuff down, it's going to kill you. The science around what stress does to your physical body is just fascinating.
So give an example of what kind of things that clinicians would push down on a daily basis. So just paint a picture of that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody probably has their own picture of what that looks like for them, but it's the pressures and going about and just doing. And for everybody, we're so used to focusing on everyone except ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's all the needs of every patient and every this and not just doing everything for everyone, and then coming home and just I don't even know where to start because everybody has such a personal story about it. But
So tell us, what are some of the consequences of that if we don't listen to our instincts, if we don't listen to our gut?
right. So, you get physical, you actually can get yourself sick. You can develop hypertension. You can develop all sorts of medical problems. The epigenetics around this, I'm not an expert on it. I just love reading it. So
Yeah.
I'm not about to start, teaching about that, but it really can even change your genes. There's studies that show that holding this stuff in and not processing your emotions can actually cause cancer and all sorts of things. So it's worth looking at.
So what do you propose as steps that we can do to fix that? So if we have physicians, and you're right, we do sometimes downplay our own needs. We downplay our gut feelings and what we need to do to take care of ourselves. What can we do to fix that?
Yeah. I think that the number one thing is first to have awareness of what your feelings are telling you and why. And I'm not saying that you should always feel happy at all, and that we got where we are as doctors by pushing through difficult times. Similar to the children who are in sleepaway camp, they are able to hold space for both their sadness and the fun that they're having, so that they can move forward and continue to have a fun summer. So for us, yeah, I'm going to have a hard day. I can acknowledge that and be aware of it, but then I can build sort of safeties around me to balance it out and to not let that just eat away at you. Just sort of accept what it is and change what you can. There are many, many things in your environment that you can change. So for example, if you're stuck and you're doing 3 hours of charts at night, there are strategies that you can build into your day, whether it's hiring a scribe or developing quick text, specific things you could do, even God forbid, seeing a couple less patients a day.
Mm-hmm.
Losing a little bit of money to protect your own well-being. It's just, developing the awareness and then changing what you can and accepting what you can't. So if the environment becomes too toxic, I'm not afraid to say that you should, find something else to do, but that's not the first go-to, because we're too important. Our mission is too big to have everybody just quit.
Now, what if some of those solutions are outside of a physician's control? You mentioned things like seeing fewer patients, perhaps hiring a scribe, but not all employed physicians are in the position where they can do that, right? Where they can push back against the powers that would make these changes. So what kind of advice do you have for physicians who are in these employed situations where they may not have as much agency to do what you suggest to fix this?
Right. And that is such a good question. That's where so much of the burnout and stress is coming on physicians, right? So it's a matter of changing what you can change, letting go of what you can't, raising the issues with the powers that be to make the case that, if I had a scribe, I could see even more patients and I would be more efficient and things like that. And if you have a completely ridiculously uncaring environment that you work in, then you should, you're not, there are no handcuffs to you. You should look for something else, because your own health and well-being is more important than anything else.
So tell me what kind of feelings, emotions, or situations physicians should look out for in order to take that next step to, Because you mentioned that if these feelings continue to be pushed down and if physicians aren't listening to their intuition, it could lead to physical manifestations of that. So, what kind of things should they be looking out for in order to realize, hey, I think that there's a problem?
Yeah. I mean, when you're feeling consistently, well, different people feel different things, right? It's that pressure in the chest, it's
Hmm.
that feeling of disengagement, of totally ineffective. It's these doom and gloom sort of feelings. And whether it's your heart racing or a clenched gut, whatever it is, they're usually telling you something is not right.
You wrote in your article, the heart is your inner compass. So, tell us more about what that means.
Yeah. I mean, we are very, very cerebral. We listen to our minds, what our minds are telling us all the time. And really, it's really your heart that sort of knows what you want to do. Your heart is what I call the heart is sort of your GPS. And my advice is always to let your beautiful mind sort of be in service to your heart's desire. So you became a doctor for a particular reason. Does that still resonate with you? If so, then get that mind to work thinking on how you can make it better. What types of things can you put into place so that you can still follow your passion? And then I talk about the gut as sort of being that to let you know whether or not you're off track.
Hmm.
So if all of a sudden you start going down one path and you get that gut wrenching feeling in your stomach, it means maybe you're doing a little bit something the wrong way, and it helps you get back on track. You have to know the big purpose of what you want to be doing, because then you can sort of tolerate the stressors along the way because you know you're doing it for a good cause.
So, tell us a success story or a case study, either in your role as chief wellness officer or through your coaching practice. What's a success story where you coach someone to implement some of these changes and they turned out the better for it?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I worked with, in talking with people, I always use the expression that we either coach people into or out of their careers, so to
Mhm.
speak. And working with somebody who actually just felt so burnt out and overwhelmed and realized over time that they really did truly love what they were doing, and they were able to sort of put up some boundaries and parameters around their workday, to leave work at work, to come home and enjoy home, and to actually stop letting work. They didn't want to quit. At least initially they wanted to quit, but by the end of our time together, they realized that really that they could, that a lot of the stuff they were putting on themselves, it was that own inner beating themselves up, that they
Mhm.
weren't doing enough for doing everything. And they're actually now more re-engaged. They're working a little bit fewer hours and found this really nice balance where they didn't just completely throw in the towel. So that I think that would be a nice example.
How long did it take that clinician to change their mindset? Because as you said, through training, clinicians
Mhm.
are not trained to take care of themselves.
Right.
How much effort, how long did it take you to change that clinician's mindset?
Well, only you can change your own mindset, right? So it's a matter of sort of holding the space and helping develop a little awareness around the role that your mind is playing on your day to day. Sometimes people are so stuck in their victim mindset that they
Mm.
have no control and you can't get through. This particular person did great. It only took a few months to sort of change the mindset and recreate the vision and take the steps to make the change. But, you have to be open.
We're talking to Jennifer Shaer. She's a pediatrician and chief wellness officer at Allied Physicians Group. Her Kevin MD article titled Why Your Intuition is Key to Better Physical and Emotional Health. Jennifer, tell us some of your take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Take home message, I would say, is that life is short, and figure out how you want to spend your time here, and don't have regrets at the end of the day. Look back, we're here, we're part of a much larger world, and we play a tiny little piece. And what part do you want to play? And don't be afraid to make that change.
Jennifer, thanks again for coming back on the show, sharing your time and insight.
Thank you so much for having me.